The smell of freshly brewed coffee filled the kitchen, mingling with the warm scent of cinnamon, and for a brief moment, all felt right in Jake's world. The morning sun poured through the window, casting golden light on the table, where he had arranged a fruit plate just the way Mia liked it: ripe strawberries, juicy mango slices, and a cluster of plump grapes. This was their routine, one they both cherished: the calm before the day began, the laughter that once flowed easily between them. As he leaned against the counter, waiting for Mia to join him, he couldn't shake off the unsettling feeling that had quietly seeped into his mind over the past few months. It was just a small shift at first, like a shadow crossing the sun. She had become more distant, her laughter less frequent. He found himself filling the silence with his own voice, unsure if she was even really listening anymore. Mia burst into the kitchen, hair tousled from sleep, a sleepy smile curling her lips. She was beautiful. Jake's heart swelled at the sight of her, the way her eyes lit up when she spotted the fruit he had prepared. Yet the warmth faded when he caught a whiff of her perfume, a scent he didn't recognize. It lingered in the air, sweet and overly floral, far more vibrant than the gentle, fresh scent of lavender she usually wore. "Good morning," she chirped, her voice bright but distracted. She reached for a strawberry, nibbling it absent-mindedly while scrolling through her phone, a new habit that sent a flicker of unease through him. They used to share breakfast together, talk about their plans for the day. Now it felt like he was sharing space with a stranger. "Did you change your perfume?" Jake asked, masking his unease with casual curiosity. She looked up, surprise flashing across her features, then smiled again. "Oh, I just picked up a little something new yesterday." "Nice," he said, hiding his disappointment. He turned his gaze to the window, watching the world outside. The vibrant chirping of birds felt like a cruel contrast to the whispers of doubt growing louder in his mind. Once the house had felt filled with laughter and easy conversation, now it seemed coated in a thick layer of silence. During the past weeks, Mia had become more evasive. Her phone buzzed constantly, often receiving text messages that she quickly glanced at but never shared. He'd chalked it up to work stress or social media, but the uneasy feeling festered like an undetected wound. He noticed strange receipts in her coat pocket: gas station snacks he didn't remember her mentioning, a fancy dinner at a place they had never been. Each time Jake confronted her about something that didn't add up, she had a ready explanation, a well-rehearsed deflection that left him feeling foolish for even asking. But her reactions began to feel forced, the laughter too high, the smiles just a little too bright. It wasn't just the receipts. When Mia hugged him now, her embrace felt fleeting, like a fleeting ghost passing through. The warmth of her body seemed absent, cloaked under a veil of detachment. There were nights he would reach out and tuck a strand of hair behind her ear, only for her to flinch back slightly, as if she were constantly waiting for something or someone else to pull her away. Jake felt like he was losing her, but with every inch of his heart he clung to the belief that they could still salvage what they had built. They had spent years together, climbing through tough times and celebrating victories. How could she throw everything away? It couldn't be happening. A few days later, the final straw came when Jake decided that he had to dig deeper. He needed to know what was going on. That evening, after Mia had left for her yoga class, eagerly insisting she be late because she wanted to socialize, he hesitated only for a moment before reaching for her phone. His heart pounded in his chest as he unlocked it with her fingerprint, feeling a rush of adrenaline that mingled with dread. The moment he opened her messages, everything seemed to freeze. There, glaring back at him, were exchanges that made his stomach churn. Sweet nothings in a familiar tone, flirty emojis that mocked his innocence. And then, one name stood out: Ryan, his younger brother. The one person he had trusted absolutely. Anger surged alongside pain and betrayal, unfurling like flames consuming a dry forest. He stumbled back, dropping her phone, watching it crash against the floor. The sound echoed like a death knell in his mind. This wasn't a dream he could simply wake up from. It was a nightmare that had settled into his life, poisoning every ounce of love he once knew. With clenched fists and a racing heart, he knew then that he had to act. There was no going back now. Those who betrayed him would pay dearly for the chaos they had cast into his life. Jake could hardly breathe as he gripped the edge of the kitchen island, reality weighing heavy on his chest. Thoughts raced through his mind like a torrent, each one sharper than the last. Adrenaline surged through him, igniting a fire of determination in his heart. He had to confront Mia and Ryan, but first he needed to plan a way to wield his pain as a weapon. He wasted no time in his preparations. The next morning, with Mia at work and Ryan still unaware of the storm brewing, Jake meticulously assembled his evidence. He printed out the text messages from Mia's phone, those sickening exchanges that revealed everything, the way they had spoken about intimacy, laughter, and love while he had stood just a room away, oblivious. Jake saved screenshots of their social media interactions, timestamps marking moments when she claimed to be busy but had instead been with his brother. As he sat at the kitchen table, stacking the evidence against Mia and Ryan like a prosecutor preparing his case, a plan formulated in his mind. There was strength in knowledge, but he needed to flip the narrative, to turn their betrayal against them. Revenge would be his, and it would be exquisite. When Mia returned home that evening, Jake was waiting. The atmosphere in the house felt charged, almost electric. The smell of takeout hung in the air, a hopeful meal that would turn into a battleground. Mia breezed through the door, her laughter a tinkling sound that now twisted his insides cut off abruptly when she noticed the tension radiating from him. "Jake? What's wrong?" she asked, her brows knitting together in concern that felt disingenuous. "Sit down." His voice was steady, cold steel hiding the tempest within. She glanced around the room, confused, but complied, lowering herself into a chair, her guard up. The mask she wore was slipping, piece by piece. He pushed the stack of papers across the table toward her, his pulse throbbing in his ears. "You've got a lot of explaining to do, Mia." Her eyes widened as she flipped through the messages, her breath hitching. "Jake, who is Ryan to you?" To us, the name hung in the air like a heavy fog, an accusation that felt like daggers stabbing his heart on every syllable. She opened her mouth, but no words came. Instead, the betrayal washed over her face, slowly morphing into a tangled mix of panic and guilt. "I can explain. It's not what it looks like." "Not what it looks like." Jake's voice rose, vibrating with indignation. "You're telling me these intimate messages were just friendly banter?" He gathered his breath, throat raw with emotion. "And what about our life, our family? What does that all mean now?" "I didn't mean for it to happen. I was feeling lost, and Ryan. He came to me." Mia's voice trembled, tears glistening in her eyes. "I didn't want to hurt you. I thought." "Thought what?" "That you'd just sneak around behind my back and that I wouldn't find out." He leaned in, his tone low but fierce. "You tore apart the very foundation of our marriage, Mia." Tears began to spill over her cheeks, but the pain inside Jake overshadowed whatever twinges of sympathy he might have felt for her remorse. He felt no pity for the person whose choices had led to this confrontation, no room for forgiveness yet. The betrayal flooded his senses. Through their sharp exchange, silence hung in the air like the calm before a storm. Then, in a voice full of defiance, he declared, "I'm done being the fool. You both have shattered what we had, and now it's time you both feel what that betrayal truly means." At that moment, he reached for his phone, scrolling quickly until he found what he needed. The public records and social media filters. "I'm going to expose you, Mia. Expose your affair with him." He tapped the screen once, gathering the energy before letting everything flow out. "Every single one of these texts, every detail you hope to keep hidden. It's getting posted online, and I could make sure your business partners know too. How do you think they'll react? Will they still want to work with a cheating wife?" Mia's face paled, realizing the implications of his words. Perhaps she hadn't fully grasped the power of what betrayal could bring upon them, or how Jake might wield it. "Jake, please." Her voice quivered, desperation pooling in her eyes. "You don't have to do this," she pleaded, but Jake felt the righteous fury build within him. "It's too late for that. You want to set fire to our lives? Fine. But know you'll feel every burn of that flame." He stood, striding toward the door, ready to expose every sordid detail, every insipid falsehood that had poisoned their life. Tonight would mark the line that would transform the lives of the two people he once trusted most, painfully and thoroughly. Just as he was about to step out, he stopped, glancing back at her. "And know this, Mia, every action has consequences. You'll learn that soon enough." The stakes had never felt higher, nor the power he felt at that moment more intoxicating. Determined, Jake stepped back into the world, unfurling his revenge, intent on turning their lives into a nightmare, one carefully crafted reveal at a time. As the days turned into weeks, Jake meticulously executed his plan, each calculated step sending shockwaves through his life and those of Mia and Ryan. After their confrontation, he had felt a strange mix of anger and liberation rise within him. For far too long, he had danced to the tune of their deceit. Now he was ready to take back control. He started by contacting the individuals who had invested in Mia's small marketing firm, people Jake had once considered friends and trusted advisors. He carefully assembled the evidence of her infidelity, pairing the incriminating text messages with timestamps and even the location data from their post-work drinks. He was a silent warrior, armed with facts, prepared to dismantle the life they had built together. When the first email went out, addressing the board of directors with a simple subject line concern regarding company integrity, a sense of empowerment washed over him. There was something liberating about holding the weight of the truth in his hands and exposing it for all to see. Attached to every email was the damning proof of her betrayal, revealing the affair that she had thought would remain hidden beneath layers of secrecy. The fallout arrived swiftly. Friends and associates who had rallied around Mia now found themselves torn between loyalty and morality. The whispers began, the rumblings of disbelief spread like wildfire. Each phone call Jake received echoed his previous feelings of doubt, but now felt hollow. It was as if he were finally shedding a layer of skin that had suffocated him for months. He stood firm as friends began to turn against Mia, their initial disbelief transformed into an understanding that loyalty to the truth was far more vital than to a liar. Meanwhile, Jake's brother Ryan was not exempt from the fallout either. In his own bid to salvage his dignity, he attempted to call Mia, to explain, to perhaps beg for forgiveness, but Jake was 2 steps ahead. He had reached out to their parents, revealing the extent of their betrayal, how Ryan had not only broken the trust of his brother but had also ruined the bond of family. Their mother, once supportive of the fleeting nature of romance, found her fury ignited when faced with cold, hard fact. Just like that, Ryan's attempts at redemption fell flat, crumbling beneath the weight of Jake's revelations. Days stretched into a blur as the news of Mia's indiscretions began to make its way through their social circles, and soon it seeped into the public domain, the rumor mill accelerating at an alarming pace. The backlash was swift. Once adoring friends now turned silent, avoiding Mia and Ryan like the plague. The isolation became palpable as each phone call went unanswered, every message left in limbo. Through it all, Jake focused on healing, both for himself and for their children. He became their rock, prioritizing their well-being by fostering an environment filled with laughter and understanding. He redoubled his efforts at work, pouring himself into projects he once found mundane, allowing the success he achieved to bring him both confidence and freedom. Then came the day of the first family gathering after the dust had settled. Mia had begged to see the children, her desperate pleas tinged with artificial remorse echoed through the air. Jake had prepared them for the encounter. "Your mom is going to be sad, but remember, she loves you very much," he had told them. But beneath that, he felt an unsettling churn in his gut. When Mia arrived, the warmth that once suffused their home seemed distant. The laughter faded to an ember. As she stepped through the door, the weight of betrayal hung thick in the air. The children rushed toward her, but as she bent down to embrace them, Jake felt the urge to pull them back, to shield them from the woman who had let them down. "Mia," he said, his voice slicing through the air, firm but calm, "we need to talk." Her hesitation was palpable, edged with vulnerability and recognition of his newfound strength. "Jake, I just want to see the kids." "They deserve the truth," he replied, his tone unwavering. "The kids deserve to understand the choices we made and how they've affected our family." The tension rose as they took a seat at the dining table, the dread of confrontation bubbling just beneath the surface. Mia tried to muster her old charm, yet it felt disingenuous amidst the chilling honesty of the moment. "The kids are old enough to understand what happened," Jake began, calculated yet deeply human. "I've always believed they deserve to know the truth about adults. You made choices that hurt us all. I'm not going to gloss over that anymore." Mia's breath hitched, her face faltering as she realized the consequences of her actions. "Jake, I thought I could fix it. That I could explain." She stumbled over her words, looking momentarily vulnerable. "I love them. I love you. It was a mistake." "But it wasn't just one mistake," he countered, his voice steady. "It was a series of choices made behind my back, a betrayal of trust that shattered not just our marriage but also their view of relationships." She bowed her head, tears pooling in her eyes. "I never wanted this." "No, but you chose it," Jake pointed out, the voice of anger replaced by the voice of reason. "And the truth is, this is going to take a long time to resolve. But I'm here for the kids. I'll always be here for them." The realization washed over Mia, and the silence was deafening as she searched for words that no longer existed. The person sitting across from her was not the man who had once been consumed by love, but a man who was steadfast in his resolve. He had emerged from the wreckage of their marriage stronger, refusing to accept the crippling weight of her choices. Their children played in the other room, laughter echoing, innocent of the emotional warfare unfolding. As they passed by, Jake realized this was where his transformation lay, not in mere revenge but in reclaiming his power. He wasn't just a man torn apart by betrayal, he was a father determined to rebuild. Over the weeks that followed, Mia's descent deepened. She found herself alone, the once vibrant social creature relegated to the shadows. Her business dwindled, and as clients pulled away, the financial pressure mounted. Jake stood resolute, the ground beneath him feeling both shaky and firm, as Mia faced the near-constant fallout of her choices. Ultimately, Ryan's own personal fallout became equally dire as accusations surfaced regarding his financial irresponsibility. Their parents were forced to intervene, and all Jake could do was watch as his brother's mistakes piled upon one another, burying their relationship further beyond reach. Jake's heart, once heavy with betrayal, filled instead with a quieter strength as he focused on charting a path for himself and the children. Every victory at work reinvigorated him, every lesson learned boosted his confidence. Nights once shrouded in darkness became filled with warm stories and bedtime adventures. Their laughter slowly permeated the echoes of the past, stitching together what had almost unraveled completely. After a few months, Mia reached out again, but the pleading tone was now different, less about reconciliation and more about understanding consequences her own struggles laid bare. It stung to hear her voice shake with the vulnerability of honest reflection, but Jake stood firm in his resolve. "Maybe one day we can talk, but right now I need to focus on me and the kids," he said, feeling a strange sense of closure wash over him. He could finally recognize his own worth outside of what had transpired. With each small victory, every smile from his children, and every confident stride he took forward, Jake walked further away from the wreckage of betrayal. It felt as if he had crossed an ocean of pain only to emerge on the shores of newfound strength. Amidst the shattered remains of his previous life, he rediscovered hope, joy, and the kind of peace that betrayed love could never extinguish. Jake had not merely survived the storm, he had emerged transformed, wiser, and ready for whatever came next. As he watched his children playing freely in the backyard, laughter spilling into the air, he knew that the nightmare of betrayal was finally behind him. The path forward was his to carve anew, and nothing could take that away from him.